is my honor today to meet and have you meet Reverend Dr. Elizabeth Marshall. She's been around a long time in a wonderful church in Inglewood, California. Elizabeth, so happy that you are here today. We'd like to learn a lot about you.
Okay.
So let's start with where were you born, and your parents, and your siblings. Tell us about you.
Give you some of my history.
Right.
I was born in Jackson Center, Pennsylvania, 88 years ago. My parents were Clara and James Menzie. I lived in Pennsylvania until I was 12 years old. And at 12 years old, my dad had an opportunity to come to Lockheed in California, Burbank, California, to work. They were gearing up for World War II, and he was a very talented machinist. And Lockheed had sent out across the United States tests for machinists to come and work at Lockheed, and he rated #1, so they hired him.
My goodness.
So we made the trip to California, which was a big difference for me because we lived out in the countryside in the woods and grew up in the woods, and I was taught that you had a communication with the olive life. And you talk to the flowers, and you talk to the plants, and you talk to the animals, and that was just natural to me. But when I came to Burbank, California, that wasn't natural. Not at all. That was weird.
It's a lot of cement, huh?
Yes. Considered weird.
Yeah.
I have 2 sisters and a brother. One sister has passed on, and my brother and my sister both are in California. I came into the science of mind. I've always said my dad got a job in California so that I could become involved in science of mind.
Very good.
Mainly because it was just natural to me. So I was 12 when I came out here. I finished my schooling, went into accounting, became an accountant, also keyboard operator, also worked at a telephone company in Burbank at one of the last manual boards.
That's a switchboard you're talking about?
Well, for the telephone company.
Yeah, telephone switchboard, okay.
Correct. I still carry a live jack with me on my keychain.
Do you?
I met my husband when I worked at Sears, and we were married in 1947, I think.
Uh-oh.
I think. This to me is the interesting thing, because we were about to purchase our first home in, I believe, 1949. And he wanted one house, and I wanted another one. And I had never stood up and said no to him. But this time I said, if you buy that house, I'm not going with you. I want this one. So if you buy it, you're going to buy it yourself.
What a threat.
So we bought this one. And it wound up that it was next door to the gentleman, Dr. Warren Burtis, who became my first teacher.
That was the reason.
Yes. I entered the science of mind immediately because he was just starting a study group in Canoga Park in his home, Dr. Warren Burtis, that is. And so I started my studies there with him. I became a charter member of what was then Northridge Religious Science Church. It is now called West Valley.
Okay.
I took all my studies there, but and then when it came time, I finished my practitioners, and don't ask me what date. I have no idea. But
About how old were you? Let's ask that.
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay.
No, I don't know. But I wanted to work in a youth movement. We had children. We had 4 at that time. My oldest son, our oldest son, had cerebral palsy. But I wanted them all involved in it, and I knew if he was going to be involved, I had to be involved because he had to have all his physical needs taken care of. But I went into Dr. Burtis and I said, I want to become a minister. I will not be a pulpit minister. I want to work with the youth. And he said, okay. But at that time, the organization was small.
Yes.
So you just knew everyone, and it was kind of like you went to a conference and it was kind of like Big Sky Retreat, where it was small and everyone knew everyone, and it was an intimate experience every time you went.
This was the early 1950s, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yes, okay.
That latter part of the 40s
Okay.
and the 50s, early 50s. And so I began my ministerial studies, and in the latter part of the class for my ministerial studies, Dr. Burtis went to Florida. And I was the only one there to take over. So I'm doing my studies long distance, and I'm also teaching the classes that he had started, but now had left, and I was the only one left to teach them. So I was teaching classes. Dr. Leo Fishbeck was doing the Sunday service. He was the new minister to Simi Valley Church, and so he would do his morning service, and then he'd come down to Canoga Park and do the service. So he would do the Sunday service, and I would run the church during the week, and I would teach all the classes. As time went on, I became involved with the youth movement. There was a challenge in the youth movement at that time in which the organization was considering closing the youth seminars. And there was a minister in Thousand Oaks, the Reverend Larry Traeger, who stood up and said, I will take over the youth group, but there won't be any problems from here on. He went to Dr. Leo Fishbeck and said, I want you to be with me. Dr. Leo Fishbeck came to me and said, and you're coming along. And that was my introduction to the youth movement. I was involved with the youth movement for 25, 30 years. 25 of that I was at the executive level, assistant to Dr. Fishbeck, and because Reverend Larry Traeger had resigned and Dr. Fishbeck took over, I was his assistant, and then he resigned and I became the executive director of youth and young adult seminars for 25 years, which was a joy. My first post in the ministry for this woman who said she would never be a pulpit minister is Dr. Fishbeck left the Simi Valley Church, I need to back up and say that Dr. Earl Barnum came to the West Valley Church. And I had moved to Simi Valley in the meantime. And Dr. Fishbeck was the minister there, but he resigned to go to Oregon at the time I moved to Simi Valley. So I became their interim teacher because I was an assistant minister to Dr. Barnum. So I became an interim at Simi Valley. But I became their minister with my heels dug in.
Put the brakes on there.
What do you mean you're electing me? I didn't say it. I was there for 5 years. Wonderful group of people. When I was there just 6 months at the Simi Valley Church of Religious Science, when the at that time the change of the organization was International Churches of Religious Science. International Religious Science Churches. And they had annually a parent, youth, teacher program once a year in which the teachers and supervisors of the children's church and youth advisors and so forth met for training and would receive new information, updated information and material and so forth. And they asked if I would share it. And it was being held at the Inglewood Church of Religious Science at that time. And so I agreed to chair it. The first night, I can't remember the name of the woman. Anyway, the first night, it was just packed with teachers, youth advisors, parents and all. She wanted to see this new material that was coming out. And I stepped out at the pulpit, on the platform at the pulpit. And this voice said, so loud in my head, "You will be the minister at this center." And I said, "Not me." Inside.
And that was how many years ago?
41.
41 years ago? Oh my goodness. You're still there.
I am still there. It wound up that there were 3 candidates besides myself. And I was the one that was chosen.
Isn't that wonderful? So now I know that you're always involved with the community also around Inglewood. What organizations or interfaith groups or and what other community projects has your church been involved in?
Okay. I was president of the Seroptimus International for 2 terms. And then I was out for 1 year and then back again for 2 years. I belonged to the Ministers Association in Inglewood. We have been involved not only in those areas, but we have brought plays into our center. We have a member of the community in our center who's a member of our center as well. And she's very active in the Inglewood Cultural Arts Association. the Inglewood Cultural Arts holds their board meetings at the center, and they have had several functions there. And she has had, I think, 8 plays. She does one a year and sometimes 2 a year. We have the Citizens and Friends of Tobago and Trinidad. Their board holds their meetings there. Plus, we had the counselor from Trinidad they had a reception there for him, so that the people in Orange County, Ventura County, and Los Angeles County would have an opportunity to meet him and asking questions and so forth. We have 7 AA groups at the center.
7 AA groups?
7 AA groups.
My goodness, that's a lot. One day at least.
Monday nights we have 2 meetings there. We have, what else do we have meeting there? Citizens AA. We have had concerts for the community there. Oh, we had a child care center for 12 years that was free to the children. And then when the economy hit, they moved out. Right now, we are in the process of developing a child care center. We also have a subsidiary that we're developing called United Family Development and Community Resource Center. And the purpose of that will be to have parenting skill classes, have places where teenagers can meet, family development, where we can strengthen the family ties. And something for the young men of our community. Our community is basically Hispanic and African American. The Caucasians are moving back, but it's basically African American and Hispanic. And there's a deep need for unity for for mentoring these young men. A deep need for that. And so I'm looking forward to developing something in that area. Community resources, having counseling available for them. Here that fits in for resource and family development. I haven't completely thought of, but I could think of a million things. Nutrition classes.
That's so wonderful.
For them.
That's so wonderful, yes.
There's so many things that I have to back off and say, first things first, Elizabeth. First things first.
Okay.
And if one of the first things is because our building was built in the 60s, the early 60s, I have to bring it up to code. Like the restrooms made for the physically challenged and that. That's number 1.
Right.
So, yes. Is there...
Okay. Are there any other organizations within the Centers for Spiritual Living organization, for instance, are you involved at all with INTA, or have you been INTA, or with Global New Thought, or...
In previous years, I was involved with INTA. I haven't been in the last 15 years. I've slowed down just a little bit and focused mostly on the center and air.
What impact do you believe that Science of Mind...
What impact?
Science of Mind has on you and the world as a whole?
First of all, it was natural for me. And it has certainly, I could spend the next 2 hours talking about what the world calls miracles, and which I know is just natural in the healing the physical body and challenges that have come up. The impact it has had on my own personal life is that it's just a way of life for me. Just a way of life. And my doctors keep saying, you're the most positive person, and we don't want to see you for another year. Just come in for your checkups. Everything will be fine. The impact it's had on the world is enormous. Because Dr. Holmes' ideas, my understanding was, he never wanted a church. He wanted people to come in, learn the principles of science of mind, take it out into the world. And therefore you would be feeding the world. And you would be sharing this information with the world. And it has happened. Talk to my children who are in business, and the training that they receive is science of mind under another label.
That's right. Yeah.
Exactly. They'll come home and they'll say, Mom, I had to go to this training program today, and the way I lived my life, which you taught all of us. So it has impact everything.
I agree with you. Absolutely. I agree, absolutely. It has.
Even other religions,
Yes, that's right.
it's impacted.
Well, we know that, I can't think of his name now, in New York, he gives credit to Ernest Holmes, Peel, Dr. Peel. He gives credit to Ernest Holmes for his teaching of the power of positive thinking. Remember that book?
Correct.
50. Yes. And then all of that positive teaching that he included along with his Dutch Reformed Church. And
Correct.
yeah. So it's, and then Robert Schuller did the same thing. And but now what do you see in the future as far as how science of mind can impact the world more even?
I feel that there is a need to be more involved in a social way. Now, what do I mean by that? I think that we need...
You're certainly doing a lot of that in your own center.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think that's
Great
very
example.
important to be a part of the community and supporting the community. And I've always been one that you go out into the field and you don't teach science of mind necessarily sitting in a classroom, particularly with young people. You may be teaching science of mind while you're playing baseball, or you're on a hike with them, or you're just sitting down having a general discussion. You're still teaching science of mind. You may not call it that, but it's still science of mind.
You've been chosen as one of our wise sages of science of mind, carrying that word forward, and through Centers for Spiritual Living. And I wonder if you have some wise sage words that you would like to share for the audience.
Well, the first thing I would say is learn to love yourself. But find, and I think the young people are doing this, I'd like to back up and say that. The young people are looking, at this point, it's not a me, as much as it's, how can I help you? What can I do to help you grow spiritually? And they use the word spiritual. They're not interested in religion. They're interested in spiritual growth. And they find it in many different ways. I have a son who's a DJ. And I asked him one day, just what do you guys do at the club? And I'm thinking they're sitting around drinking. He says, oh, we talk about life issues. We talk about how we can help one another. He said, it's how can we grow and be a better person? And we'll just sit around. He said, we may have a beer or two. But he said, mostly it's coming together for social activity while we're growing and becoming a better person at the same time. And I think that's what we have to take a look at and provide those avenues for the young people who are coming up, because they are not my generation at all.
I really appreciate this time you spent with us. Do you have any other last words that you would like to say?
Not that I can think of.
It's been wonderful having you with us. Thank you very much, Dr. Elizabeth Marshall.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.